All right. Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening for our Tuesdays together with some Torah study. This is a different kind of Torah study than I've done with folks for the last 2 years. How many of you have studied in the using a Shalom Hartman Center curriculum? Great. So have you done iEngage, Judy?
Yes,
Okay. But you probably did it in person, right?
yes.
Who else? Nancy, what did you do? Which ones? We can't hear you. You're on mute.
I think it was Israel. It was a number of years ago, in person with Rabbi Feldman.
Right. Okay. So when I chose this particular curriculum for our community, it was 100 years ago, or what feels like 100 years ago. It was um, in July when I was actually at Hartman, sitting in the Beit Midrash. Now the world is in a different place. Nevertheless, I went back to my Hartman mentors last week and today to discuss our jumping off point and how we would do this online. And should we still be talking about Jewish peoplehood? And I feel like it is crucial to have conversations about Jewish peoplehood. But also, we can't ignore where we are in the world. So I want to open tonight with a couple announcements, what we're going to do tonight, what the next couple weeks will be like, and then what resources you have. Everyone, there's actually a couple of people who I don't know here, which is a little bit interesting. If you are on, we'd love for you to have your name on so that we see everyone's name. This curriculum is supported by a lot of background materials that you can be part of and you can do and watch on your own. So you are all emailed tonight or earlier today a sign-up form where at no expense to you, you will be able to sign up for a Hartman online account. If you already have one, you can use the same account. You just have to get to the curriculum called Together and Apart, The Future of Jewish Peoplehood. Although the link that you were sent today is specifically for this curriculum. The way the curriculum works is that we have the opportunity, oh, it's the governor's mother coming in. Judy, we welcome you. I just said that you may not be known to everyone in this community, but I introduced you as my friend and the governor's mother. But not the governor of New Jersey. This is Judy Shapiro from Philadelphia. Okay. We have, Judy, other Akiba graduates on this. Eleni also went to Akiba. Yeah. Right. So the email that you got today has a form for you to fill out online. Don't do it now, do it tomorrow, some point during the week. And what it will do is it will give you the online ability to have all of the texts that we emailed you today. It's a 314-page text booklet, which you don't have to pay for if you want the online version. If you want a book version and you don't want to download it yourself for free, let us know. Don't let me know now, but email us during the week and we can order books for you. Those cost about $15, I think. But you don't have to order. You don't have to even download the book if you want, because each week we will do what we did tonight, which is that we will send you the sources that we plan on using each week to make it easy for you. We'll send you the unit that we're going to do. There's 14 units, and I'm going to go over what they are and which ones we'll use and which ones will maybe go a little bit off the beaten track. Each unit contains an opening lecture from a Hartman Uber scholar, super scholar. The one for today's you can listen to after. I listened to it last week. It's Dr. Tal Becker. Tal was part of many governments and was involved in creating parts of any kind of peace plans you've seen in the last 15 years. He was part of creating that. He's a scholar and also a political scientist. So you'll be able to see that video. There's also then a follow-up video, which if we were on here for not an hour and 15 minutes, I would maybe show the videos, but I don't think videos come across very well online. But I think you'll enjoy the one with an Israeli rabbi, or an Israeli secular woman, Dotan Amiram. And then you'll also enjoy Rabbi Angela Buchtal on the one for this week. Before we leave tonight, I'll tell you what I think people should study for next week if you want to do pre-work. I think it'll work better if you do a little bit of pre-reading, but you don't have to. In each class tonight, we're going to go through a lot of text. One of the things that you do at Hartman is that you do a lot of text, so you don't dray or spend a lot of time on each text. Instead, we're going to pull out what the text means and then use it as a way to discuss. For next week, this week, we're going to read the background text together and then read the primary sources. So we always have two sets of texts. One are background, and then the other are primary sources. And by primary sources, we usually mean Talmud, Tanakh, something from our ancient culture. But what we really want to do is use this as a jumping off point to chat about identity and the formation of identity. Our unit 1, which we may not get through all of it tonight, we'll see, is called From No Home to Two Homes. How many of you feel like, anyone here have a second home? Do you ever feel pulled to, Norma, where's your other home?
I'm in Manchester, Vermont, heading back to Princeton tomorrow.
Okay, so Norma, actually, I know where she lives in Princeton, but she's in Vermont, so she has someone who has two homes, but relatively similar cultures. What we're going to talk about is how we went as a Jewish people from no homes
Israel being the other one.
to being a nomadic people to having dual allegiance and two homes. Our next unit will be about what it means to be in Judaism, then what it means to become, and then unit 4 is the one I'm most interested in spending a lot of time on universalism and particularism. So, and I use those words a lot, like what it means to have universal commitments to the whole world, to humanity, versus what does it mean to have individual commitments to our own people? Really, what does peoplehood mean? So how do we understand the idea of peoplehood? So this week, you can use any of the videos. There's 2 different videos that you can use after the class as a summary. One will be with Tal Becker, it's 33 minutes, and one with Rabbis Angela Buchtal and Dotan Arieli, and those are 17 minutes. Either ones are fine as a look at. But next week, I'll give you in unit 2, I'm going to invite you to a 27-minute introduction that you might want to hear during the week with Dr. Daniel Hartman, one of the presidents of the Hartman Institute. If you don't listen to his lecture, that's okay, because the actual text that we're going to talk about are the ones that he's discussing. So if you want to come with having Dr. Daniel's understanding beforehand, great. But if your week is too busy and you want to just start with the text with us, that's okay as well. Does anyone have any questions about like how to sign up to get all of the free materials?
How do you sign up? You just click on or?
No, so I sent you
Oh,
actually, Suzanne, could you pull that up? The thing that was sent out on how to sign up, so I can just tell everyone.
It's also in the
Maybe.
chat.
But I'd just for this one, because I think there'll be some people who don't know how to do it, so I'd love to
Yep.
show.
Give me a second.
is it in our inbox or?
It was in the link that you used to get to this tonight
Oh, I see.
file. So what we're going to ask you to do is to go to, and please don't do this now. Now we just want you focused on class, but sometime during the week, go to step 1, http://onlinehartman.org.il. And then you're going to create an account If you don't have an account, if you
Oh,
already have an
so
account,
is this in our regular emails or someplace else?
you already got this. If you're
Oh,
on,
okay, I didn't see it.
yeah,
All right,
you're
maybe
on
it's
tonight.
probably there. Yeah.
So Hazel, if you're on this tonight, one of the attachments that Emily
Oh,
sent,
okay.
actually she sent it twice even, is this flyer.
Oh, okay.
If you've learned with Hartman before, you already have an account, you don't need to do steps 1 and 2. If you haven't learned with Hartman, or you've only learned with Hartman in person, and also this is only if you want this information, if you want the free materials, I encourage you to do it. But also if you're frustrated by it, then that's okay. Or we could see you during the week, or Suzanne or someone could walk you through this, right? So you're going to how to set up an account. You have this in the email that you got tonight. You're going to create an account on the hartman.org. The IL means they're in Israel, which means, by the way, things might be a little slower if they have tech issues, because not everyone is, a lot of people who are at Hartman in Israel have been called up. So if there are tech issues with our stuff, we know why. Your registration code for our community for this particular course is right there. Hartman decided this summer to make this course free of charge. Usually their courses cost synagogues $1,800, I think, something like that, which there's a lot of work that goes into it, but this one they wanted people to be able to really have access to. Once you get into your account, once you have access to it, what the actual computer online will look like is all 14 lessons will be there. And at the top are all of the texts. So you don't have to wait for Emily to email them to you each week. They're there if you want to look at them beforehand. But also there are all these videos that I'm talking about. Each lesson comes with 2 videos. One is an introductory lecture, like a real academic lecture with a scholar. And the other is a discussion. All right, does anyone have any questions about how to log on? And if you don't, if it's confusing, you can call someone in the office or someone here. We can walk you through it during the week. Is everyone cool with this? All right, let's take it down. This just gives you one more layer of resources. So we were debating earlier, just do we do in person or not? But so many people really have told me that they want to be online, that it's just moving into a colder weather, darker weather, they want to be online. Okay. Anyone have any questions about what we're going to be learning? So this is about Jewish peoplehood. Great. Before we do that, I want to take a little bit of time and recognize that we are in a cataclysmic time where everything has changed for the Jewish people in the last 10 days. So I want to I'm going to use a poem. How many of you were there Sunday night at our memorial service? So Moshe, you heard the poem as well. You were there. I'm going to use that poem to express how I've been feeling, but I want to just go around, and before we ask the questions of peoplehood, how you have a relation to peoplehood, I just would like to have you say your name and a line about how you're feeling. And I am saying, I'm Rabbi Mero, and I am overwhelmed by all of the changes and difficulties in the Jewish world right now. So let's go and just say who we are. And I'm going to call on people to make it quick. Suzanne. Suzanne is here lovingly as our incredible Zoom master.
We were discussing this before, feeling immense sadness and kind of apprehension for what's going to happen in the future.
Thank you. Dr. Mindy Langer.
The doctor has nothing to do with it really, but
Part of your identity, sorry.
that's okay. I feel very sad for
Long
both.
time ago.
I feel like
Okay, if you're not, put it on. Yeah, mute if you're not speaking. I'm sorry, Mindy, go ahead.
no, that's okay. I feel sad for everybody involved.
Right.
And it's just miserable, and I don't know why people in the world can't do something to get along with each other after all this time.
Thanks.
That's my
Okay.
main emotion of it.
Mike, how you feeling in a sentence?
Well, I feel very apprehensive, but I also know that we have a strong core. And when you look at how societies form, first you have like folkways, things that people in that society do that make them feel they're part of that society.
Mike, I'm going to cut you off right here just because we will discuss that later as part of our class. All we're asking for now, right now, because we have a lot to do, is how you're feeling.
I'm apprehensive, but I know we will come through.
Thank you. Judy Flightman. You're on mute. And then after you
Okay,
just
been a
break-
while. Okay, couple of feelings. Still feeling helpless and trying not to feel hopeless. And also I am so concerned with the amount of, how it's been conflated. The Palestinian issue has been conflated with a horror by a terrorist organization. And I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around how people can do that. Why haven't we heard from the Muslim community more? Why haven't we heard from the imams? This is, if Jews did this, we would say this isn't us, this is a group of Jews. I don't it's very hard for me.
So this is very hard. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So the Bravermans, who are new members of the congregation, but not new to the community, they have 2 delicious children of Abrams and this gorgeous baby that they bring to shul that makes me so happy every time they bring this baby to shul. We're going to get to name her in a few weeks.
Hi, so I'm Anna, Mark, and the baby's name is Ariel. I think I'm feeling angry.
Angry. Thank you. Yeah. By the way, we're not going to challenge anyone else's feelings. Whatever you feel it. Yeah. Mark. Mark, do you want to talk?
I guess kind of shocked and disappointed.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, me too. Moshe. And then Judy.
I feel what Moshe, there are 2 Moshe.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going in order here. Moshe Margolin.
Okay. I'm not surprised at anything because I've been on the earth for 72 years and nothing surprises me. That doesn't mean that I'm not angry. But all this it's sad, but you can explain why everybody takes their position, whether you believe them or not.
Thank you. Judy Richmond.
Hi. So I am feeling sad and angry and frightened. And as Rabbi Mara kindly pointed out, I'm afraid of how angry I'm feeling. And I just had an absolutely horrific text conversation with a Muslim woman I've known for many years now about the moral equivalency of terrorism and the Israeli treatment of Palestinians. And I am freaked out about it all.
Yeah. I'm glad.
I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Moshe Lavid. איך אתה מרגיש?
I feel very mad at the Israeli government.
Tough. And Hazel Sticks.
I think about little else. I think about it all the time. It's the most horrific thing. And I've listened during the day to different discussions. Dan Kurtzer and other people have been talking about things. And what amazes me and how quickly people are going to switch over from being horrified at this to being horrified at the casualties that will happen in Gaza, and wonder how that could be avoided in any way. It's just, as somebody said, it's going to go from today's news. today's news will be Gaza, and what happened in Israel will be yesterday's news.
Okay, thank you. So Nancy and then Rini and then Rachel, and it's how you're feeling. And I promise not to do this every week, but I also feel like we can't not gather and not really see how we all are.
I'm just feeling so completely sad and so overwhelmed.
Thank you. Rini and then Rachel.
I'm also sad, but I'm also angry at the news media for blaming Israel for Palestinian injuries when Hamas has been doing this to their own people for years. And I feel I'm very sad for the innocent Palestinians, but we are defending ourselves. We did not start this war.
Okay. So remember, everyone is speaking for themselves. And we're not going to have the arguments about yes. This is Rachel, everyone, and Rachel sits in the back row of services, and she's there every single week for the last year, and she is studying to become part of the Jewish people, and she's already part of the Jewish people because she's there, and she even brings her in-laws to be, and she, God willing, will be getting married at the Jewish Center this year. So if you see her and she'll go sit with her at some point. Rachel, how you feeling?
I feel unsure.
Yeah. Debbie and then Mickey Mendelson and then Eleni.
So I try to be careful with how much I expose myself and how much I read every day because it has such a terrible effect. And today I was in discussions with someone I hadn't seen for a long time and also did a lot of reading. So I'm feeling very overwhelmed. And I mean, Israel is always between a rock and a hard place. We had, a lot of support over the horror in the beginning, but I fear that public opinion is going to change, very fast. And that's very concerning to me.
You're concerned. You're feeling concerned. Thank you. Mickey and then Eleni.
I'm feeling worried.
Worried. Yeah. Thank you. Eleni and then Myra.
Yeah, I share probably every single feeling that was mentioned, including the ones that seem not to agree. I share all of them. And basically, I'm just glad to be here with each of you in my community.
Amen. Amen. Myra.
I'm feeling sad, also frightened, but I'm also kind of numb. I'm just not sure how to feel and what's going to happen.
Because you've been feeling this for all of you for 10 days and some of you many more. So yeah, a lot of feelings. So Norma and then Laura.
I really, hearing these words is helpful. I just have not been, I haven't even known how I've been feeling, just really uncomfortable, shaken, sad, apprehensive, worried. So all of the above.
Thank you. Laura and then Judy Shapiro.
Yeah, I will go with all of the above and struggling to figure out how to cope in a good way. Trying to figure out what that looks like.
Thank you. So this is Judy Shapiro, the next speaker, and she was when she was working, a Jewish educator who I did get to work with, a fabulous Jewish educator. She raised a Jewish educator and she also raised a governor. So she's coming to us from the Pennsylvania side. Judy, how you feeling?
Well, thank you, Rabbi, but thank you so much for letting me be part of this. What an amazing, articulate group. There's nothing I have to add. I was nodding my head on everyone. And I really thank you so much for allowing me to be here tonight.
We're always, yeah, always.
Thank you.
LaGrange and Jane, I just want to tell you, we had a conversation about 10 of us or so back and forth after shul about this on Saturday, but I also learned about some really cool SpaceX, NASA stuff going on and a launch that Jane got to build components for. And then I was in the car Saturday night and NPR and the regular news were talking about it. So thank you. You're on
Yeah,
mute.
sorry. I will send you some
Video.
cool videos. Yeah, I have like a whole list of people, but yeah, it's still making me happy. But I don't know what to say other than being happy about that. I'm just sad and horrified. I mean, I can only second what everyone else said.
I think we have Ron and then Barbara.
Certainly we've heard plenty, how people feel, but one thing I've also gotten has been a lot of, oh, Ron Schneider, brother of Laura Sucher. I've gotten a lot of messages from non-Jewish friends asking if there are people we know, is everybody okay? And a number of people ask, where could they send donations? So there have been some positive things to this too.
Amen. Barbara.
So interestingly, that Ron just mentioned how pleasantly surprised he was that non-Jewish friends were asking how he was. One of my, I mirror everybody's sentiments in terms of emotion, but I do have some disappointment in the non-Jewish friends that I have, which are many, and their lack of getting it, even talking about it or having it kind of be a part of the conversation or the reaching out of how we are. And to be honest, the other day I was driving somewhere to do something fun, and this was in the beginning, maybe Monday, Tuesday after the Saturday. And to be honest, I felt guilty.
Yeah. I feel like I thank you for sharing that. And I feel like a couple of you shared that you're feeling multiple emotions that feel maybe at odds with each other. I think that might be one of the issues here for all of us, that there's such a roller coaster of guilt and sad and angry and righteous and angry at ourselves and at how we're feeling and all of it. And surprised sometimes by our sense of peoplehood. And that's why I'm actually glad that we're able to begin with this piece of the discussion, because what we're going to talk about is what tonight in our classes, what and who are the Jewish people? What does it mean to be part of a people? This is a class called The Future of Jewish Peoplehood. On Sunday, I was humbled, honored to be able to participate in a memorial service. And I was the only non-Israeli who participated. And I wanted to sort of be able to capture for the Israelis who were there participating what we all feel, or what I think many of us feel. And so a friend of mine who works in the Jewish world sent me a poem that his friend wrote. I read part of it in Hebrew. I'm just going to read it in English. This is how the guy who wrote it, his name's Ro'i Kibiti. And if you want a copy of it, I put on my Facebook page. This is how it goes. He wrote, someone outside of Israel asked me if I know someone who was killed in Israel. And I didn't understand the question. I know them all, I answered. And he didn't understand the answer. So I wrote this to explain to him. And then he said, and I'm sharing this to strengthen all of our sisters and brothers in Israel. Here it is. It's a poem. I don't know you, but I saw you in some bar. I don't know you, but you took my parking spot. I don't know you, but our parents are friends. I don't know you, but I heard you playing matcoat on the beach. I don't know you, but your smile makes me smile. I don't know you, but we were arguing in a WhatsApp group. I don't know you, but you almost ran me over with your scooter. I don't know you, but you gave me your seat on the bus. I don't know you, but I saved a place for you in line at the bank, the post office, the supermarket. I don't know you, but we liked the same music. I don't know you, but we studied Torah together. This next line I left out because there were children. I don't know you, but we smoked a joint together in the Sinai desert. I don't know you, but we stood side by side at Mount Sinai hearing Torah. I don't know you, but we stood side by side in Kaplan or at Kaplan, in the protests. I don't know you, but I know you. I don't know you, but I love you. I don't know you, but I will remember you forever. We're all connected. And so how are we all connected? And the question we're going to ask is, who are the Jewish people? And why are you connected, or how are you connected to someone you've never met that lives in Africa or Morocco and has very little culturally similar to you? For much of our history, others answered that question for us. Who was the first person, by the way, to answer the question, who is this people? That would be Pharaoh. We're going to study that text. He actually expresses fear that the people of Israel are like a fifth column and they're going to come and do bad things. And Pharaoh gives voice to something that anti-Semites have said for years. What we've decided in the end of the 21st century and in the beginning of the end of the 20th century is that for Jewish peoplehood to be really understood, we have to frame it in positive terms. We have to figure out how we understand ourselves and how we're related to each other. And so I want to ask that question before we go to the sources. What do you think Jewish peoplehood is? And if you could share some of your answers.
Something shared.
This is a thought question. What does Jewish peoplehood mean? No, that's okay.
Shared history?
What did you say, Hazel?
Could be shared history.
Absolutely. Peoplehood, part of the ingredients that makes the pot, the soup, the stew of peoplehood, and I do think it's a stew, is a shared history, or at least part of a shared history. What else? Yeah, Rini.
Well, Mike had his hand up first.
Oh,
so
okay. I didn't see
I
it.
can wait till after you call
Yeah.
him.
Mike, go ahead. Happy to hear you. Oh, but you have to unmute. Hi, Lee.
They had a nurse come in, sorry.
Okay.
We have certain folkways that we have followed, very basic ways of dealing with each other as societies are formed, and they grow into mores, and mores are a little bit more strict, and from those we get laws, and laws are what keep us together as a people.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Rini, you going to add to that?
Well, I was thinking religious practices because I'm thinking of Yonatan and Asa, who have none of the cultural background that any of us have. And yet we all stand in shul and pray together with the same words. And to me, that's really important.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We good? Should we start? Oh, Moshe.
I think it's how others have treated us.
So from the external, how others treat us, that's a question I want you to we all need to keep in our minds. How is our identity formed from how we choose to form it versus how others put layers of behavior on us and action? Mark.
So I think it's like a family. So that's perhaps why it's hard to pinpoint, because it's hard to define a family. But on the other hand, it might be less important in some ways because you don't, sometimes it depends what you define it for, right? So if you file your taxes, you need a definition, but for whom to invite to a wedding, maybe you need, but in general, you don't need it.
All right. So now that we have a little bit of a working definition, how about we go to the sources and study? Good. Would it be okay that we can look at each other? And if you want to look at the text, Suzanne, I believe, has put it in the chat. I'd like you to go towards the end where it says page 8, background reading.
Where is this?
It's on page 8 in the chat.
My
Or you-
chat has only questions.
Oh, if you joined later, we just put it there. Click on it where it says I engage. Or we sent it out, you may have printed it out already, or you can just listen. So either way.
Oh, here, together, page 8, I see.
So have any of you read this book? It's a crazy, interesting
From
book
home to two homes, I see.
by Yuval Noah Harari called Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. Elena, you've read some of it? Yeah, what an interesting book. So if we're thinking about how we are formed as a people, this really has a lot to do with what Mike was letting the cat out of the bag at the very beginning. Would somebody volunteer to read the first paragraph, and then we're going to jump a little further down of the Harari Sapiens? Yeah, Laura, that's fine.
Where is it?
Our chimpanzee cousins usually live in small troops of several dozen individuals. They form close friendships, hunt together, and fight shoulder to shoulder against baboons, cheetahs, and enemy chimpanzees. There are clear limits to the size of groups that can be maintained in such a way. In order to function, all members of the group must know each other intimately. Two chimpanzees who have never met, never fought, and never engaged in mutual grooming will not know whether they can trust each one another, whether it would be worthwhile to help one another, and which of them ranks higher. Under natural conditions, a typical chimpanzee troop consists of about 20 to 50 individuals. As the number of chimpanzees in a troop increases, the social order destabilizes, eventually leading to rupture and the formation of a new troop by some of the animals.
Okay, does this sound familiar to humans in some way, right? Yeah. Similar patterns probably were how we were born, how Homo sapiens were born. I'm skipping to the next one. How did Homo sapiens manage to cross this critical threshold, right? When the group grew too large, its social order destabilized, the band split. The secret was probably the experience of fiction. Large numbers of strangers can cooperate by believing in common myths. So who knows the quintessential Jewish foundation story of how we split in the Torah? The Tower of
Babel.
Yeah, so that is our story of this. Most cultures have a story of how we split into those differing groups. Judy Fleitman, when she was talking about how she felt, was talking about, why can't these groups get along? Why can't we all get along? And most cultures have stories of when they stopped getting along, or when they grew to sizes where they would stop getting along. Someone want to read any large-scale human cooperation, whether a modern state? Someone hasn't read yet? Although, Laura, you read beautifully if you want to continue.
I can read.
Yeah, Myra, thanks.
Any large-scale human cooperation, whether a modern state, a medieval church, an ancient city, or an archaic tribe, is rooted in common myths that exist only in people's collective imagination. Churches are rooted in common religious myths. Two Catholics who have never met can nevertheless go together on crusade or pool funds to build a hospital because they both believe that God was incarnated in human flesh and allowed himself to be crucified to redeem our sins. States are rooted in common national myths. Two Serbs who have never met might risk their life to save one another because both believe in the existence of the Serbian nation the Serbian homeland, and the Serbian flag.
How many of you saw Hamilton? Okay, so there's an amazing question, story, song. Who tells your story, right? And that's what Harari's asking. Who gets to tell your story? And whoever gets to tell your story actually is creating your story. It's not just about telling the story, but in the telling of our narratives of who we are, we create who we are. Or at least that's what he is telling us. Telling effective stories is not easy. Can someone read that one paragraph and then we're going to stop there? Yeah, Debbie, thanks.
Telling effective stories is not easy. The difficulty lies not in telling the story, but in convincing everyone else to believe it. Much of history revolves around this question. How does one convince millions of people to believe particular stories about gods or nations or limited liability companies? Yet when it succeeds, it gives sapiens immense power because it enables millions of strangers to cooperate and work towards common goals.
Okay, so I'm going to stop here and say, what is our common story? Ask that question. What are the common stories of the Jewish people? And everyone just give me one. Mike, thanks for being first.
Language.
Language.
And something else.
Yeah, do you mean Yiddish? No.
No, mom and dad didn't teach me that. No, it's interesting to me how Eliezer ben Yehuda got to have modern Israel speak Hebrew, because that tore the people apart, but they didn't split up.
So for you, it's language. But try to go back, other people try to go back also. What is our foundational story? Yeah, Jane.
The Exodus from Egypt.
That's one of them. That's the story that we repeat and we repeat.
The Revelation.
And we repeat. Revelation might be one, but probably the story of Egypt is much more foundational to who we are in the diaspora. And Judy.
Torah.
Torah, what do you mean? Break that down a bit.
That all Jews have the Torah and the exegesis of the Torah as part of our lives.
So that's a late edition story, right? So interesting the way you said it, because Torah should be the first element that we have, Torah. But then the reason I said, well, what do you mean by that? And you said it, the exegesis, the commentators. So interesting. We think of Torah today, I think of Torah today, certainly in the same way Judy does, which is that it's everything people have said about it, layer upon layer, certainly most importantly in the Middle Ages. So it's not that only that early story that we were talking about, the Revelation, or the story that Jane was talking about, the Exodus. It's how we've built those stories over the several millennia. Judy Fleitman.
Monotheism. We were the first monotheists.
There it is. Right. Monotheism as one of our stories. But what we'll learn is monotheism actually will become less of a differentiator because we'll share it. Right? Who do we share it with?
Netflix.
Muslims.
The difference between Adonai Echad and a Trinity still separates us from our Christian neighbors.
Separates us, but really philosophically, at least ancient and modern rabbis consider them monotheists. They consider themselves monotheists.
They do.
Yeah, and we let them self-differentiate, so self-decide who they are, self-define. But yes, they're different. Yeah, Lee Garber. Hi, Lee.
Hi. Yeah, I was gonna mention the monotheism thing, but with Abraham and, like, okay, I'm gonna go where God shows me and found a new people and all of that. That's certainly a foundational story.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to move on to a next source, because one of the things about any Hartman curriculum is that they they throw too many sources in and they always say, oh, you, the teacher, decide, but I think they're all interesting, so I want to at least expose you. So the next source of background is by our favorite guy, Chaim Nachman Bialik.
Oh,
And
poet.
it's about Jewish dualism, right? So basically what you're going to get out of this is that Jews were like an organism with a capacity to expand out into the world, right? We could go out into the world and be part of the world, but we could also constrict ourselves. We could influence the world and we could be influenced by the world. We see that we influence the world with what we were just talking about, monotheism. But when you get to the time of Maimonides, we also were influenced by all of, Aristotle and Islam and all of those. So we are a kind of people where we are an influencer and we are influenced. By the way, I always find that to be an interesting piece of identity for you to sit for 1 second and think about, what are you influenced by? Like what makes you you? That's what makes us Jews, or however you self-define. And then what of your life influences others to be like they are? You'll have time to read the whole Jewish dualism. It's a longer piece. But what I think I'd like to do, because I want to make sure we study the original text, is to pull up the source sheet and go back to text number 1. Could I have a reader for text number 1? We're going to go through a couple biblical texts to think about what's our story. Who would like to read from the Passover Haggadah?
I will if you put it up.
I think we're not putting it up. I think it's in the chat.
Oh,
So you can just click on it. We're happy to have you click on it. So does someone else want to read it? Yeah. Judy, and then Mindy will do the next one. Judy Flightman, but you have to
Yeah, there we go. We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and the Lord our God took us out from there with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm. If the Holy One, blessed be he, had not taken our fathers out of Egypt, then we, our children, and our children's children would have remained enslaved to Pharaoh in Egypt. Even if all of us were wise, all of us understanding, all of us knowing the Torah, we would still be obligated to discuss the Exodus from Egypt. And everyone who discusses the Exodus from Egypt at length is praiseworthy. In every generation, a person is obligated to see themselves as if he or she was personally redeemed from Egypt.
Okay, the most celebrated Jewish holiday is
Pesach.
Passover in some way. This is the one that gets everyone in, even if they're eating a macaroon, someone is doing something for Passover. This is the myth that permeates all of Jewish society. Did we create this, or did someone, Moshe? Tell me about Moshe Margolin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what you were talking about. Did we do this to ourselves, or did someone do this to us?
Well, we created the myth, but what was the core? And I think that it was outside stuff as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, which is why I went back to you. I think it's outside stuff. And tell me what was that outside stuff?
Well, I think it's always been that we've been in search of an identity and a root story. And you need that, especially when you're being challenged from the outside. You have to create your own identity.
So this is the beginning where, Mike, did you want to add something?
Yes. Tony Wiesel said that we should not ask what did they do to us, what did we do?
Okay, so here something's done
We're
to
not victims.
something's done to us, and we are in some ways created by the experience, not of leaving slavery first, but of being slaves first. So, and for that, I'm going to the next text. I'm going to do it. Because I wanted you to hear the Hebrew. Vayakom melech chadash al Mitzrayim asher lo yada et Yosef. A new king arose. Oh, this is text number 2. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Why is it important that he didn't know Joseph? Just someone.
Joseph was the role model of what to do.
Well, how was Joseph? What did Joseph have? Judy Shapiro.
In a way, it's sort of the idea of why we need Israel, so we don't have to keep sucking up to dictators and pharaohs and everyone else. Joseph had a great relationship with the pharaoh, and so the Jews could live well because of that. But then as soon as he didn't have that relationship, or over the years, the court Jews or whoever it was that could please the leader and it could be okay for us. And we saw that with the Holocaust that it didn't work. And we needed our own country, we needed our own land so that we could be safe. And I think that was one of the things that was so scary about this war. Having our borders breached and having all of this, because this was the place where we could defend Jews. We didn't need to suck up to any pharaoh. We would defend Jews.
And right. It's such a beautiful story. We're going to read the Joseph story in just a few weeks. And Joseph is able to protect his people and protect his family, but only because he had some special, in Hebrew, the word is protexia. He had this special relationship with the court, with the pharaoh. He was Kissinger, or Kissinger was Joseph, right? He was able to help us out. But once he was gone, Vayakom melech chadash, a new pharaoh arose who didn't know Joseph's your special relationship. And then here's what's really important. Eleni, do you happen to have the text up?
I do. It's in
Did
the
you
other room.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm happy. No, I'm right there. What did you want me to do?
I wanted you to read in Hebrew. I know that you read in Hebrew, so that's why.
Sure. Okay.
I know that because she's a graduate of the Akiba Hebrew Academy, Eleni. Yes.
Other people know Hebrew too, but yeah.
I know, but I'm playing the game that this whole course is about. We have that in common.
We do. All right, I'm just getting back to the screen.
Verse 10.
Yes. So which do you want? What do you want me to read? Vayakam?
No, I read Vayakam, so we'll go to Tet. Vayomer.
Tet. Vayomer el amo, hine am bnei Yisrael, ra ve'atzum mimenu. Hava nitkakma lo.
All right, that's enough. In fact, that's amazing. And it's great that there's all this nikud, all the grammar. Vayomer, and he said, el amo, to his people, am bnei Yisrael. Pharaoh is saying back to the Egyptians, this is an am. This is the first time that we are called an am in the Torah. What's an am?
People.
People.
This is the first time we're called a people. And what's wrong with them? Let them deal let us deal shrewdly with them, so they may not increase. Otherwise, in the event of war, they may join our enemies in fighting against us. They're the fifth column, as I mentioned before. So they set taskmasters upon them to oppress them. As other Judy said, Shapiro, oh my gosh, we didn't have the protector anymore. And so now we are in a state of trouble. Okay, I'm going to text 3. I know other people, I'm not going to take any comments right now because we're going to get through a lot of text. Just try to put it in the parking lot if you can. Text 3. So the book of Esther is one of my favorite to read, and I usually don't get to read. Oh, I do read chapter 3, but I usually don't get to read with any real thoughtfulness because I'm dressed up as like Marilyn Monroe or something. But I love this particular chapter all the way down to verse 8. There's a certain people, Mifuzar or Miforad ben Ha'amim, scattered and dispersed among other people in all the provinces of your realm. What's wrong with those people? Their laws are different and they don't obey the king's laws.
They're not us.
They're not us. They act differently. They have different laws. And so because of that, we're going to persecute them. It's the second story of that. The first story is in the pre-Exodus. We call the Exodus story, but it's really the becoming slave story.
That's like anti-Semitism.
We have two stories of we are different. And who's making us different, by the way? Not mitzvot. Mitzvot is me, you saying, I'm going to work to do something different about my behavior. So give me a modern example of something you could do today here's one. To show Jewish identity in a positive way. I have a kippah, and this is actually my dad's kippah. So you could show Jewish identity. Or how about going to a kosher restaurant? Or not traveling on Shabbat. There's lots of different ways you can show you are different, Mifuzar, without the end product of us being different. Oh, and now we're going to persecute you. Except in these two texts, the story of slavery in Egypt, the story of Haman, these two texts show us something quite scary. Our identity is given to us. We're an am, a people. You saw that for the first time. And what kind of people are we? We are scattered and we are different. And here, I always thought different meant good, right? What's the Hebrew word for different or to show that it's different? What's the positive Hebrew word with a kuf? Kadosh.
Miyuchad.
Oh,
Kadosh.
Kadashim.
Kadosh, separate. Holy means separate.
Right.
Here it doesn't. Okay, I'm going to Genesis, to the 4th text. Someone want to read the 4th text? Remember, this is what we're talking about is from no home to 2 homes. So the 4th text. And I think I said 8 till 8:15. Is that right? Good. Okay.
I'll read it.
I can take longer, but Jane LaGrange, go ahead.
Wait, in Hebrew or English?
No, just read English. It's fine. I know you're a great Hebrew reader because
The Lord said to Abram, go forth from your native land and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation and I will bless you. I will make your name great and you shall be a blessing.
Okay, so where is that land? Someone who hasn't answered. Where is that land that God will show us? Someone who has not yet answered. Where's the land God will show us? It's not New York.
Los Angeles.
No, where is that land?
Israel.
The land of Canaan. It's the land of Israel. So that's in chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. How long did Avram stay there? 8 verses. 8 verses. Avram stayed there 8 verses. Avram goes to the land of Israel and he stays there 8 verses. Look at this next Genesis text. Could someone read it?
There was a famine in the land, and Avram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land.
Oh my goodness. We talk about the centrality of the place of Israel. We're not talking about state, about the place of Israel. And yet, we're told to go to the land, the place of Israel, and 8 verses later, we've already left. From the very beginning of our story as a people, we had 2 lands or no land. We were in that land of Israel, then we were in Egypt, we were somewhere else. Everyone cool with me? because I have a few more texts to go before. Is that all right? So I'm going to page 6. I just love this text because I love me a good Isaiah and a good Jeremiah. This is the text. So this is Jeremiah chapter 29. This is the text of the letter which the prophet Jeremiah sent from Jerusalem to the priests and the prophets, to everyone. Where did he send it to?
Babylon.
Yeah, Bavel. Nebuchadnezzar's there in Jerusalem and exiles us all. It's the first exile. And all the eunuchs are there and everyone's like a great scene. And he sends this letter out of Jerusalem to Babylonia. And I think it's going to say, oh my God, don't worry. You'll come back and you're going to come right back. That's not what it says. Verse 4 of Jeremiah, what Jeremiah the prophet is saying to those who live outside of the land of Israel. Who could read it? Volunteer?
Canaan.
Verse 4.
Was Canaan outside of the land of Israel?
No, Canaan was the land of Israel. So they're outside, they're in Babylonia.
Oh, in Babylonia.
Yeah, they're exiled. And now the prophet from Jerusalem is saying something to the exiled Jews. Who could read that for us? Verse 4.
כה אמר אדוני צבאות, that part.
Yeah,
אלוהי
but
ישראל.
read it in English. I mean, it's lovely that you read it.
Thus said the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to the whole community, which I exiled from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat their fruit. Take wives and beget sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons, and give your daughters to husbands, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there, do not decrease. And seek the welfare of the city to which I have exiled you, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its prosperity you shall prosper.
Wow. What is the directive? Someone who hasn't spoken or hasn't spoken in a while. What's the directive from Jeremiah to the exiled community?
Stay where you are.
Yeah. Who said that, Rachel? Yeah. Stay where you are. Stay in Princeton. Stay in Montgomery. Stay where you are. And not only that, but seek the welfare of where you are. Become part of that place. So interesting. Become part of that place. Anyone want to add anything or ask a question or say anything? Okay, I'm going to the next text, text 7. Would someone want to read? It's a text that many people know because Bob Marley sang it. In English?
I can do it. I mean, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and wept as we thought of Zion. There on the poplars we hung up our lyres, for our captors asked us there for song, our tormentors for amusement, sing at us one of the songs of Zion. How can we sing a song of the Lord on alien soil? If I forget you, Jerusalem, O Jerusalem, let my right hand
Forget it. Honey.
Let my right hand wither. From the very beginning of our narrative in Genesis, we stay in the land of Israel for only a brief time. We then move down to Egypt. Then later in the Bible, we get exiled from Jerusalem again, and we go to Babylon. And even though some of us come back after 70 years, most don't. Very similar to 75 years ago, many Jews went to live in the then Third Commonwealth, state of Israel. But not my parents. How about yours? Right, we stayed here. Let's see what this incredible address to the American Jewish Committee Executive Committee community, this little excerpt is so interesting to think about what our own identities are as American Jews. And by the way, so influenced, and maybe our identities are so different today than they were 10 days ago even. Would someone volunteer to read The Voice of Reason? It's the 8th text. Yeah, thanks, Mindy Langer.
There are a few unthinking Jewish nationalists who appear to want to assign to Israel the role of ingathering Jews from all over the world, in the false belief that Jewish life outside of Israel, in exile as they put it, is without spiritual value, cultural significance, or hope of personal or group security. We repudiate vigorously the suggestion that American Jews are in exile. The future of American Jewry, of our children and our children's children, is entirely linked with the future of America. We have no alternative, and we want no alternative. Is there more?
No, there isn't more, but aren't you blown away by that? And also, it's what we've all lived. We've stayed here. So here's the question for today. How did we go from a people with no home, wandering through the Eastern countries and then Europe and then Africa, to having 2 major homes in the world, right? American Jewry, or North American Jewry, we would say, and Israel. And how does Israel assert itself today as part of our identity? Is it, oh, it's there, and I don't like what it does, so I'm nervous about it? That could be some of you this week. Is it there, and it's got to be strong, and it's got to be the answer to that Pharaoh and that Haman, where we always needed someone else to take care of us? What is it like to have 2 homes? And how do you relate to having a home here and a connection there? So I'm going to open it up now and ask the question. And I would have asked it much differently before 10 days ago, but you can answer however you'd like. How do you feel now as an American Jew about the role of Israel as part of your identity? You can take a few moments to think about it if you'd like. And so right now I have Judy and then Mike. Yeah, Judy Flightman, thank you.
So it's quoting my daughter, who wrote quite a piece in answer to her non-Jewish friends and what they were thinking. Jessica, yeah. But she made me think of Israel as our lifeboat. That no one we have, Israel is our safe haven. Israel is a place that we can go to if, God forbid, the worst happens. And we can love where we live, but we also love and need to preserve our lifeboat just in case we need it.
Which is so interesting, right? That is the idea, the really classical Zionist idea, the state of Israel as a miklat, a shelter. And what some of you at the beginning were shocked and aghast at is that it wasn't a shelter for us last week or for them. It didn't do what it needed to do, or didn't do what it said it was going to do. I think, Moshe, you're going to be after Mike, and add on to this the question of how might you answer this differently if you lived in Israel? Okay, Mike, and then Moshe, who has lived in Israel.
Well, I believe that.
I'd like to say something too.
Yes, great. I have Hazel, great.
Oh, after. I was going to say, how are we different? And we are from, say, someone who's Irish, an Irish Catholic, who is an American but has very strong feelings toward Ireland. And would we have this strong feeling of Israel being our second home had there not been a Holocaust and not a lot of anti-Semitism? Or would we just say we're the Americans and we're very interested in Israel, and it's a nice country, and we will support it. What makes us two homes, actually? And do you think it comes from the feeling that there was no place for us to go when we needed to?
Maybe, and it's a yes and. It's not a yes, it's not an or, it's a yes and. In the formation of the or the sense of peoplehood, we spent years and years and decades and 2,000 years maintaining a connection to the land.
But anti-Semites will say, you're not really an American. If you really, I mean, what happens if there's a dispute between, I mean, this is what people will say. So
look, not just what people
where do
will
we come
say,
in on this?
It's up until the almost late 60s, 70s. You weren't white in America. What were you?
Jew.
Right. Jews and whites not welcome at the water fountain. I'm going to go back to Mike and then Moshe.
I'm just curious to see what people say to that.
Right, but so we're going to hold that parking lot a little bit, and then Mike, Moshe, and then we'll go back to Hazel, and then Eleni. And I'm writing this down. Mike, go ahead, and then Moshe.
Okay. I agree with what the first speaker said, in that it is a possible place that we can go if, God forbid, we ever have to. But I totally believe that we won't. I am totally committed to the United States of America. And my total feeling is God bless America. And we have our problems here and we can solve them.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that there was certainly a time a couple years ago when there was a certain president when many of us were looking at what other options there were.
Oh.
Moshe, who did live in Israel.
Yeah. This discussion made me very pessimistic. That's all right, Andy. You know, that doesn't matter. It's not your fault. But I'm pessimistic because I see that our future is fraught in both places. If Hamas can come over the border of Israel and the army that I was a part of didn't react properly, I'm fearful for Israel. And I know because of the events of the last 10 days and the next 10 days and 2 weeks and 3 weeks, that anti-Semitism is going to be on the rise here. So I think when I said from the beginning, and I didn't, the threats are always coming at us. And I think now we're starting to feel them more. That's what I think.
Thanks, Moshe. And we're going to Eleni, and then we're going to go back to Hazel's formulation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you feel pessimistic, Moshe. I am. I do so feel sorry about that.
I share the pessimism, and I'll just add a perspective that I've been thinking about a lot lately, kind of taking the long view. Not that the long view is very helpful, but I'm thinking about the Ottoman Empire and how in the Ottoman Empire, which was hundreds of years, in many, many, many areas, Jews, Christians, and Muslims were interdependent and got along. And as I studied lately, the breakup of the Ottoman Empire, that's when it got really bad for Jews. I'm more familiar with what happened in Greece, where Jews there had to choose between Turks and Greeks in terms of their identity. But anyway, I feel the only another thought is that, you know, my grandparents, as I'm sure many of yours, left Ukraine early enough not to have been swept up in World War II. You know, left at the turn of the century. I'm not very optimistic. I think somehow we will survive, but I think what.
Can you clarify who the we is?
I guess I mean we Jews.
Okay.
We Jews. Yeah. I'm not very optimistic because I seem to witness more often than not that people care more about hating Jews than raising their own families and being, you know. Anyway, I'll stop there. They're not all tied together, those thoughts, but I'm struggling to take a long view about things, which doesn't seem so positive either, because of all of the losses that we Jews had. And then also just seeing how some of those 100 years old notions are playing out, you know, right here in our own country and our universities and all of that. And I'll stop. I don't mean to ramble on. I'm just trying to put my thoughts together.
You can keep putting your thoughts together. Remember, this is a 14-unit course, which could take more than the 14 classes. And we've had a war thrown in. So there's a lot here to think about what it means to have an evolving Jewish identity, an evolving identity of peoplehood. This class is really called The Future of Jewish Peoplehood. This is about peoplehood. Rachel, your hand's been raised for a long time.
Well, actually, no, I just raised it, but I just want to respond to that because I've been doing a lot of reading for my conversion class, and I find a lot of strength and hope in Judaism that it survived for so long, that people were so dedicated, and there has to be something with the religion that even through all the persecution that people still believe. And I think that's really beautiful.
So, and what we're saying is we're lucky that you're with us. And here's the thing. I want to capture what you just said and go back to my folks who are feeling a sense of pessimism. I'm with you. This has been a very hard, almost 2 weeks for all of us, right? And you know how we say the arc of history is long? The arc of Jewish peoplehood's pretty long too.
Maybe I'm just going to say one thing. Maybe in answer to my own question, I might say that you could make a distinction between peoplehood and citizenship. So people who say you're not a good American citizen if you have two equal loyalties, but one would be the peoplehood of, or as we've been saying, of Jews, and then the citizenship. So that when you're voting, you know, you're voting as an American, but your feelings can also be of being part of a larger of people.
Right, and that sense of peoplehood goes across borders and grows across time, and connects you to Anna and to Mark, who weren't born here, and to Yonatan and Isa, who were born in Africa, and to Eleni's great-great-grandparents from the Ukraine. And as you said, Eleni, you said so beautifully, you said, well, most of our parents who came here a few generations ago, but we all came from somewhere, right? Didn't matter where we came from. So interesting. I was talking to Avi yesterday. All the days go into, we were talking about one particular tune. I don't know if you know this, but Avi spends a lot of time thinking about with me and thinking about by himself, what tunes will evoke the feelings of the people that we need to evoke on Shabbat? And how do we create a joyful service? That was our question last week. How much joy in Shabbat services do we bring? Because we were all feeling quite melancholy. So what do we bring? And we were talking about one particular tune, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, that will be in the Friday night service or won't. We're debating. And it is so utterly joyful. It is just so joyful and so utterly not Ashkenazi that we're like, I actually said, we need to keep it in because it reminds us that we're not just Ashkenazi, that we have this cross-cultural sense of Jewish peoplehood. By the way, have you all seen some of the ways Israelis are like letting off some steam with humor? Have any of you seen it? Well, if you're reading any of the stuff on social media that's in Hebrew, there's one that every time I see it, I laugh. The translation of it is something like, soldiers that are about to go into Gaza keep telling the parents of Ashkenazim to stop bringing their bland food to the border. They have enough to deal with. There are these attempts at showing the differences even within Israel, that we come from different lands and different cultures. What makes up peoplehood? What are some of the elements before we leave this topic? Mike, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, it's the fact that a major change now is that governments are supporting Jewish people. And by that, I mean, there are special guards and other things not against, but incorporating synagogues in the United States.
Yeah,
in Great Britain, and in Germany even.
And in some states in the United States, we even have elected officials that are Jewish. Joking, because governor's mom's here. And I will tell you all that you should know how, for those of you who live in Princeton, how amazing the mayor of Princeton has been to the Jewish community and the police force. I want you to know that the police chief has been texting me and Joel nonstop, has been adding without cost to us extra patrols all over. It's actually something quite beautiful. I want to again say to you that this is a long conversation, but that next week's is about what it means, the Judaism of being and becoming mean. And then I really want to get to the discussion of universalism and particularism. What I'd ask to prepare for next time is you can prepare by doing nothing because your week is crazy. That's okay. Or you could listen to the lecture that's about 27 minutes by Dr. Danielle Hartman. Have any of you, besides, I know Judy probably has studied with Danielle. Has anyone else here studied with Danielle Hartman and Laura? So it's a pleasure to be with someone who calls himself an Orthodox rabbi, but I'll tell you that when I was saying Mourner's Kaddish for my mother 2 summers ago at Hartman, and he saw me saying Baruch Hu, he answered to it. So I also know he happens to have done same-sex weddings. He is the most liberal Orthodox rabbi I've ever met and runs this incredible institution. So I think that you'll love, if you were to do anything to prepare, I would have you
Are there links to all of these things?
Yes, all you fill out the paper that we sent. You go online, it's 4 steps how to get to the curriculum. And then if you want the enrichment part of the curriculum, you can watch the video. Today, I don't think you need to see Tal Becker's introduction, and you don't need to see Danielle Hartman's either. We're going over all of the stuff, but if you'd like to, you have great scholars there. And I would definitely take the opportunity, if you've never learned with Danielle, to listen to this lecture. What I do think you might want to do is there's a follow-up piece to this week, to our conversation, and it is a 17-minute conversation between 2 rabbis. One is secular Reform Israeli, and one is an American Reform rabbi.
And where do I find that?
It's all right. That's on where.
Back on the original thing that you sent out?
Yeah, and once you get on the website, that would be on Unit 1, and it's the follow-up material.
Oh,
so
okay.
the 17 minutes is, hey, what is it like to be an American living here who might want to live there? And one of the things you'll hear Rabbi Buchdahl say is, as a liberal American egalitarian Jew, there's not many places for her there. True.
Okay, thank you.
So I want to stop and say thank you. This is much different than the Mitzvah Initiative class, a lot of different kinds of learning. So I would definitely love your input, private or public, about how this felt to you. And you can email Suzanne if you have questions, but you can also email me, ram@thejewishcenter.org.
Thank you.
Okay. My bracha, my blessing for everyone is that you sleep well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Good
Sleep
night.
well, that you read some good Torah. By the way, my favorite part of this Torah is that, all the Torah that we learned, that we could only Avram and his wife could only manage to stay in the land of Israel for 8 verses. And then they had a hightail it there.
And I just wanted to thank Rachel for making her hopeful comment, because the expression with us Jews, we strengthen we strengthen each other.
Amen.
She strengthened me tonight with her perspective.
Yeah. I also want people to know that I know it's hard now. It's hard to feel all these conflicting emotions and the fear and the anger and the sadness. And so give yourselves a break and make sure you sleep and make sure you eat and take a walk and come walk my dog for me or something. And so I will see you all on Tuesday on Zoom, but I will not.